Hello, it's me. Some interesting things have happened in the last couple of days, but let's start with the more current ones, the ones that will affect more people. The fixes and the changes that Blizzard put into the game with some hotfixes. Number one, this is interesting because it shows the importance of this ability. Wild Spirits is now briefly visible to the Hunter's allies. Now, it's an interesting change because it shows that Wild Spirits is so OP and broken that you need to make this visible, particularly to tanks, because tanks are obviously the ones that have to tank the mobs inside Wild Spirits for the ability to be worth. So Blizzard has thought to help them. The way tanks were coping right now with Wild Spirits was to simply use a weak aura that showed them when it was used on top of the pack. They were tanking, so they knew when it was good to move or not. Yeah, the better change was to just nerf this ability. I guess quality of life is still fine. I'm still waiting for the nerf though. Then we have another change which happened because of me. It was just thanks to me and my video about the Twisting Corridors. Blizzard saw the video, was enlightened, and went back and removed the gating from the quest chain that is going to unlock the Twisting Corridors. As you know, this previous month you have went through the quest chain to unlock Twisting Corridors and you had to wait every week. Now, it isn't really a problem now because you already had to wait, but for all the people who have been left behind, especially the ones who started later, they still would have had to wait several weeks to get to the unlocking of the Twisting Corridors. Now, to be fair, the point I made in that video was that the Twisting Corridor achievement, and more importantly the mount, is going to be account bound, so you don't have to necessarily climb the Twisting Corridors on all of your characters. You can just do it with your main. So making the entire quest chain not to require any more gating is going to help, sure, but if you already had a main that kept up with all the weekly process of this quest chain, then it's not going to change too much for you. Now we have another hilarious change, because it's a change to time walking. So time walking has been, so to speak, nerfed. We now have a lowered amount of loot per person in time walking raids to better match Shadowlands raid drop rates. I'm saying this hilarious because clearly Blizzard wasn't thinking about time walking when they restructured the loot system of Shadowlands. Lowered the drop rates in Mythic Plus, made Mythic Plus drop item level lower than heroic raids, then lowered the drop rates in raids, and then made it even more scarce in Mythic, where you only drop 3 pieces per 20 people. So of course time walking wasn't even in the radar. But they forgot that every once in a while you also have a time walking raid which drops normal loot, so 200 item level. Now, this has never been a problem because nobody gave a shit about time walking loot. It was at best some sort of alt catch-up mechanism, right? But this expansion, the loot is so scarce that even the guarantee, even the more plentiful drop rates of a time walking raid that gives you 200 item level becomes a commodity people actually want. I find it hilarious that Blizzard doesn't think about, maybe if so many people are doing time walking is because there is something weird going on with loot. Yeah, you are going in the wrong direction. The weird thing was too little loot in Shadowlands, not too much loot in time walking. But on a more serious note, I still think, and I'm still hopeful, that in the next patch, in the next content patch that will come out, I don't know, a couple of months maybe, they will sort of restructure the way loot works in this expansion. But for now, I guess time walking has to take the hit. Amount of loot in time walking has been nerfed. Now, another couple of hotfixes to close this chapter. Muezala has gotten hotfixed. This is something I'm pointing out just because it also happened to me. I have also seen this happen. Crush Soul damage was higher than intended in Mythic. It was basically double dipping in its mechanic. The fact that it would do the damage taken by Soul Crusher over 9 seconds, and it was higher. And it was reportedly working essentially without damage reduction. It was taking the entire supposed damage that Soul Crusher would have done to the tank and then spread it over 9 seconds. Even if the tank was taking Soul Crusher with 90% damage reduction, it would take the dot as if it was full damage taken from the initial ability, so good to see. It's been fixed. A little bit too late now because this is now fortified week, so it doesn't really matter anymore. It would have been better if they fix it to Tyrannical, but yeah. And then we have the last change. I don't know anything about this. So you guys, you lowbies, tell me what this is about. I've read some complaints that people were basically stuck in LFR. They weren't able to get to Zymox after they dealt with Sunking Salvation, Kelta's fight, because the doors wouldn't open. And that was it, pretty simple problem. And now it's been not fixed. Now, this next point I am totally stealing from a couple of my friends because it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me and my exalted reputations because I've got fuck all of them. crew world quests. I'm not farming any of that shit. So one thing that's happening in this expansion, just like it was in BFA and Legion, it was the Paragon caches, the Paragon reputation rewards, right? Now, the first thing to mention in this expansion is that you have secondary main faction reputations, right? You have, for example, something like the Court of Night, or the Avowed, or the Stitchmasters. Paragon, this expansion, only works for the main reputation. So the Ascended for Kyrian, the Court of Harvesters for Ventir, the Undying Army for the Necrolord, and then the Wild Hunt for the Night Fae, not the secondary factions. Now, as for the rewards that you can get, I was a little bit surprised because I don't really give a shit about any of this, but I noticed some difference. Maybe some mega collector is going to inform me on the reason why. I'm sure there is one. But so far, the rewards for the Ascended, the Kyrian, and the Court of Harvesters, Ventir, are shit. You have the Battle Pet Larion Cub as a reward, and the Cape shit reference to ToS, the malfunctioning Goliath Gauntlet. The Court of Harvesters right now only have the Stone Skin Dreadwing Pup, so a Battle Pet. I was mentioning the difference because the Undying Army, Necrolord, have an amazing looking pet, which is the Micromancer. It looks really good, to go together with your Transmog set as a Necrolord, and then they have the Reigns of the Colossal Slaughterclaw as a mount. Similar for the Wild Hunt and Night Fae, their pet is shit compared to the Micromancer, the Hungry Burrower, and then they have a mount, the Amber Arden Moth. So I was mentioning about the Mega Collectors. Probably this difference in rewards is because the secondary faction of the Court of Harvesters maybe is giving you something extra. Maybe in the region there is some more toys and mounts you can collect. So Maldraxxus and Ardenweald in Necrolord and Night Fae get something extra. I don't know. You guys point this out. I don't care about this sort of stuff. Particularly battle pets. I don't really do battle pets and mounts. I only use mounts that show your E-pin, not mounts that look cool. I am weird that way. Now, something else to point out, which might, on the other hand, affect everyone, is the spamming that's going on in trade, the spamming that's going on in general chat, even in the looking for group tool, and advertising as a whole. So the last point is, of course, the drama of the day. Well, the drama of the day is that sometimes when a player feels like he has been wronged, he's gonna go on Reddit. He's gonna make a thread, and he's going to try to rally the troops behind him, get enough community noise, community stomping their feet on the ground for Blizzard to notice, to have to send their PR team in it and try to fix and calm the waters. Now, more often than not, a GM is gonna show up, expose the player for being a liar and hiding some particulars that would have made him in the wrong, and then it ends there. The community laughs at the player for trying to trick everyone. Happy ending, except for the guy who got banned. But that's usually how it goes. Now this one though, is a little bit weirder. It's a little bit 50-50, it looks like. So this player mentions that he's part of a gold-only sales community. So they dabble in everything from selling items, achievements, mounts, etc., but only for gold, which is, by the way, allowed. You can sell whatever you want for gold. So, as it often happens to accounts and characters in this community, in this type of trade, they often get silenced. You know, they spam the chat, people get pissed, they report them, they get silenced. So he appeals the silence, and a GM answers in a way that some could say unprofessional. I completely get wanting to dispute this penalty. I've been playing our games for over a decade, and I would be devastated if something happened to them. I have thoroughly reviewed it for you to double check what happened. Upon review, we have determined that the WoW account was created solely for the purpose of advertising boosts. While advertising for gold is acceptable, we have changed our policies, and creating a World of Warcraft account solely for this purpose is not. As such, we have lifted the silence, hooray, but applied a ban to the WoW account. So the smugness and sort of unprofessionalism of the answer is sort of showing. However, of course, it doesn't stop here. The player points out that in the in-game advertisement rules in the ToS, in the terms of service, there's nothing about this. There's nothing about, oh yeah, you can advertise for gold, you can't sell gold, because then you have to go to us for the WoW token. You can't, of course, use real money, but you can advertise for gold. So the player is confused. What did he do wrong? There is nothing here. He points out that in his ban, the link to the terms of service that he agreed to doesn't even exist anymore. So the previous page, which was pointing out there's nothing wrong with advertising and creating accounts solely for the purpose of advertising, the page is now gone. He then goes on to try to appeal it even further and the entire appeal gets closed down, the entire ticket gets closed down in less than 30 minutes. Now the question is, this was an account with over 100 million gold. This guy in question is the owner of the entire community. How does it get closed down so quickly, in 30 minutes? To make things even more confusing is that other people have come in support of the player to criticize Blizzard's behavior, because some other players who were doing the exact same thing and were silenced on their account for the exact same reason have gotten this response from a GM. I'm happy to say I was able to overturn that silence. Please be aware that using accounts or characters solely for the purpose of advertising is not allowed and will result in a ban. I recommend deleting all those new characters you recently created just to advertise with, and only ever advertise on your actual characters that you play the game with to avoid a ban. So there seems to be some sort of power abuse or difference in treatment. Not all the GMs have been put in line with the same type of behavior and the same type of response to give to this type of, I guess, change of policy that has been happening in Blizzard. So this seems like an oversight of Blizzard to not, make sure everyone is on the same page when handing out this sort of punishments or even warnings or even announcements in any sort of official response by Blizzard to make everyone aware that this would have been a thing. This leaves us with the question of the day, which is, how do you feel about this? I mean, it's a pretty rhetoric question. I think the majority of people will be happy about this. This stealthy change of policy where Blizzard is going to no longer allow characters to exist for the sole purpose of advertising. So if you advertise, you have to do it with your character. You have to go around, do some Mythic Plus, and then advertise. You have to go around, do some farming of World Quest, and then advertise. You can't create a low-level character, sit in a main city, and then advertise. You can't even get an alt, a level 30, 40, 50 alt, park it in a main city, and advertise anymore. You have to actually be active with the character you're trying to advertise. As I said, pretty rhetoric question, because I think people in general are annoyed at the spam, are annoyed at the advertising, regardless of what the restrictions Blizzard puts in. I have the feeling that the more restrictions there are, the more people are going to be happy anyways. So still, I will lay this question upon you. Let me know what you guys think. Tomorrow, as always, there's going to be, I don't know, who knows? It's a surprise. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, don't get banned.